What if waiting keeps you stuck where you are? And the reason I say that is I see it all the time is people are trying to time the market, time interest rates. They're trying to look for that perfect home, or perhaps they're not sure of where they're heading. And the reality is, by you waiting, you will cost yourself appreciation, pride of ownership, and that mental roadblock of renting versus owning. Whether you're ready now or just starting your journey, we're here to walk with you every step of the way. Welcome back to The Purchase Path, the podcast where we talk about real life strategies for home ownership. We don't have the fluff, we don't have the gimmicks or the pushy sales pitches. I'm your host, Dez Loessberg, and today we're diving into one of the most misunderstood and misused tools in real estate, the lease purchase option or lease purchase agreement, or as some people like to say it, rent to own. The naysayers call it your last resort, but here at Azcension, we like to call it what it really is, a second chance with a plan. Now, before you roll your eyes and say, this is some cheesy late night infomercial, just hold on a second, because lease purchase agreements, when they're done right, can be a bridge, not a trap. So today we're going to talk about breaking it all down, what a lease purchase actually is, who it's for, who it's not for, and what to look out for so you don't get burned. And we've seen it change lives when used the right way. We offer them, and they're a great option to talk about with your sellers, your home builders, or your existing housing when you go out and want to structure something that'll get you into home now if you're not quite ready. So what is a lease purchase agreement? Well, let's start with the basics. A lease purchase agreement is exactly what it sounds like. You get the lease and rent a home today, and you get the right or option to purchase it later. Now, don't confuse this with a straight rental or some loose rent to own agreement that's scribbled on the back of a napkin. In a true lease purchase option, you're locking in three key things. One, you're pre-locking in the purchase price. That's right. No matter what happens in the market, you get to execute your option with that predetermined sales price. You get to pick your lease term, 12, 24, or 36 months, typically the 1 to 3 years. And a portion of your monthly rent, which you can determine, goes towards your purchase. That'll be a credit that goes towards your closing costs or the purchase price when you execute your option. Now, there's also something called an option fee. This is a non-refundable payment that gives you the right to buy the home later. Now, there's one clear thing that you have to understand is that there's two separate agreements. On one hand, you have the lease agreement, just the normal landlord-tenant lease agreement and contract. The other option is the lease purchase option, and that is a separate agreement and contract for your right as a renter to buy the home at a later time with predetermined terms. So think of it as a down payment, essentially on your down payment. Now that fee can range anywhere from 1 to 5% of the home's price, depending on the market and the way you structure your deal. So if you're looking at a $275,000 house, you're probably putting down $5,000 to $10,000 up front as your option fee. Now, that may or may not go towards your purchase if you buy, depending on how it's structured. And if you don't want to execute the option, it is non-refundable, but it's a great way to start leasing now and having the option later. So let's talk about why you would choose to do a lease purchase option. Now, you might be thinking, why not just wait until I'm ready to buy? And that's a question I get all the time, especially over the last 22 years of being in this industry. And here's a better one. Here's a better question that you should ask yourself. What if waiting keeps you stuck where you are? And the reason I say that is I see it all the time is people are trying to time the market, time interest rates. They're trying to look for that perfect home, or perhaps they're not sure of where they're heading. And the reality is, by you waiting, you will cost yourself appreciation, pride of ownership, and that mental roadblock of renting versus owning. Now, that is a whole dynamic shift. I promise you there's a sense of pride when you own your home, and that elevates you into a better space for your family and yourself, your employment, your health, all of it. It costs you more to wait than to exercise an option now. So one of the reasons why people might wait is they want to clean up their credit. Maybe someone's told you you're 50 points away from qualifying for a loan. Maybe you've got the income and your stability, but maybe you have a couple things on your credit. Well, the lease purchase option buys you that time. You can buy now, work on your credit, and then exercise your option later. Now, we have another episode on easy ways to increase your credit score right away. So check out that episode if you want to do something sooner than later. Reason number 2 is if you're self-employed, your bank statements show money, but Fannie Mae is not going to take it. They want W-2s and pay stubs. And the lease purchase option gives you room to file 2 years of clean tax returns. Maybe you haven't filed. Now, again, we have another episode talking about ways you can use alternative financing to be able to qualify without having that documentation. But maybe you want a little cleaner loan, and so you need a couple years to be able to file your taxes, get caught up, and then document your income. And reason number 3, you want to lock in today's price. Let's be honest, home prices simply aren't going down. Now they're stabilized as of mid 2025, but if you fall in love with a house and a lease purchase lets you freeze that price right now before the market climbs again, it is a great option. And let's not forget, for many buyers, this is the only path left that has dignity baked into it. Because let's face it, the traditional lending system doesn't make space for everyone. So this is a great creative way that you can get into the home now, work on some things, and then exercise and purchase later. So let's talk about what to watch out for. Okay, so there are great lease purchase agreements and there are not so great lease purchase agreement, but it's not a magic wand and it can absolutely burn you if you don't know what to look for. So let's talk about some red flags on what to avoid. So red flag number 1 is there's no clear contract. You should have two separate documents, a lease agreement and a lease option or purchase agreement. So if someone is just verbalizing that agreement, or perhaps it's convoluted in one contract, I would separate those two contracts out. Of course, you can always talk to a realtor or a real estate attorney, but you need to have it in writing, documented, and the suggestion is 2 separate contracts. Now, here at Azcension Homes, that's exactly what we do. Red flag number 2, if you don't have anything going towards your purchase, then it's not necessarily a lease purchase agreement. Because if you have 2 separate contracts and you're only paying rent and none of that's going towards your purchase, that could be a way for the seller to get out of that contract. You have to have an exchange of financial gain along with that contract. Now, double check, trust but verify with your real estate attorney. But if you're not exchanging anything monetarily, that might not constitute a valid contract for the option agreement. Let's talk about red flag number 3. When you're responsible for everything, the major repairs like structural or sewer, maybe the homeowner's taxes or insurance, those are an expense that you should not burden until you exercise the option and actually own the home. Now, there are different ways you can negotiate your lease purchase option, but for the most part, you'll be required to manage the normal repairs. But until you actually own the home, the homeowner expenses will still be the responsibility of the seller. So know what you're signing and don't assume. Red flag number 4, there's no clear exit strategy. Now, this is more of a red flag for you. You need to know what your exit terms are. So I would recommend going out and talking to a loan officer or a preferred lender. We have some we can connect you with and have them work up the numbers for you. If your lease purchase option rent agreement is $1,600 and you're paying a few $100s towards the purchase every month, and say your total payment's $2,000, but because of your credit or whatever the situation is, your payment doubles to $4,000 at the end of your term, there might not be a good exit strategy. So you need to know what your terms are at the end of it, so that way you're not putting yourself in a bind when you do decide to exit and exercise your option. Let's talk about who this strategy is not for. Now, there are a lot of people that this is a great option for, and there's also some people who should not even entertain this option. So let's keep it real. The lease purchase option isn't for everyone. So if you're unsure about the neighborhood, your income's unstable, your credit is way off track, and you're not actively rebuilding it, then honestly, you're probably better off renting and building a savings plan first. Also, if you're working with a seller who refuses to get anything in writing or won't give you rent credits, that's not a lease to own. That's a landlord playing dress up and taking advantage of you monetarily. Let's talk about how Azcension Homes structures their lease purchase options. So at Azcension, we've built our lease purchase program from the ground up with integrity and impact. We focus on applying a portion of your rent credits, which will predetermine and is manageable by you directly to your purchase. We'll lock in your price from day one, and we'll predetermine whatever the appreciation amount will be based on statistical averages. And we'll give you support the entire way. Whether it's 12 months, 24, or 36 months, we will be there with you every step of the way, and our lending partners will help guide you as well. And we'll ultimately support you if you have questions, you have needs, you need repairs, or you need someone to guide you in building your credit, working on your down payment, or structuring your exit strategy. We have partners that'll cater just for you. And that's why our buyers aren't just happy, they're proud. They get to own homes today because they had a bridge and an opportunity when everyone else gave them a wall and an excuse. Let's wrap this up with everything we've talked about so far. A lease purchase option isn't a gimmick. It's definitely not a scam, and it's not a last resort. It's a tool, and like any tool, it works when you use it the right way, with the right guidance, and you work with the right seller or the right builder. So if you're someone who's in between careers, you're rebuilding credit, you're self-employed, or you just simply need a little bit more time, there is a purchase path for you. You're not broken, you're not behind, you're just on your way. And here at the Purchase Path, we'll keep walking it with you every single step. I'm Dez Loessberg, and this has been the Purchase Path. If today's episode helped you think a little bit differently about lease purchase options, share it with someone who might need that same hope, because we're not just building homes, we're building futures. Until next time, stay curious, stay committed, and remember, you are closer than you think. The cost of living has pushed too many families out of the communities they love. They work hard, but still can't afford enough space. Rent keeps rising and home ownership feels like a distant dream. That's where the Purchase Path comes in. I'm Dez Loessberg, founder of Azcension Homes, and I retired after 22 years in the lending industry after I kept seeing the same pattern. Good, hardworking families getting locked out, not because they didn't deserve a home, but because no one ever showed them a real way forward. This podcast exists to change that. Here, you'll learn about real paths to ownership like zero down financing options, down payment grants, lease to own programs, and financing options that are actually designed for families like yours. This isn't about fluffy dreams or get rich quick advice. It's about clarity, options, strategy. So whether you're relocating, renting, or just tired of waiting, you'll get the tools and the truth to move forward one step at a time. Follow the Purchase Path now on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen, and start your journey with Azcension Homes. Your path, your purchase, your time.